Mr. Siegel, let's just clear up one bit of semantic confusion. The Buffalo shooter invoked the Great Replacement theory, engaged in other racist and anti-Semitic speech. He said he was inspired by the New Zealand mass murderer who killed more than 50 people and proclaimed his loyalty to anti-Semitism and racism and so on. If that person calls himself a National Socialist, would you categorize him in your research on the left, National Socialism being, I guess, the linguistic root of Nazi for Nazi Germany?
I think any sober look at the Buffalo Shooter's manifesto statements, and by the way, the symbols and names on his weapons, symbols of white supremacy, names of white supremacist shooters before him, would recognize that attack as clearly a white supremacist attack.
Okay, good. I wanted to ask you about something that Ms. Nomani said, and there were some things she said I agreed with, there were some things she said I disagreed with, but she used the phrase of a woke army, and I just want to be clear about this because we've been focused on violence today. Is there such thing formally, literally, as a woke army that has ever killed anyone in a synagogue like the Tree of Life Synagogue or a church like the Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston, South Carolina, or a supermarket like the Tops Supermarket or a Walmart? Does a woke army exist as a violent threat to the American people?
I'm not aware of any woke army other than in a semantic argument type of way.
Okay. Ms. Tyler, can I ask you, what motivated the Joint Baptist Committee to take on the problem of white Christian nationalism?
Well, the problem of white Christian nationalism fits with our mission of defending and extending religious freedom for all people. And that's because Christian nationalism strikes at the heart of the foundational ideas of what religious freedom means and how it's protected in this country. And that, of course, is with the institutional separation of church and state.
Can I ask you quickly about that, because everybody knows about Jefferson's famous letter to the Danbury Baptists. Well, why have the Baptists always been such strong champions of religious freedom and pluralism and toleration?
It really goes back to the beginning of the Baptist movement in the early 17th century, and Thomas Helwys, who wrote the first defense of universal religious freedom in the English language and was imprisoned by King James I for his advocacy. It continued with Roger Williams, who founded the First Baptist Church of America. What unites these early Baptist advocates with modern-day advocates like me and others at the Baptist Joint Committee is our theological commitment to soul freedom and our living out of Jesus' command to love our neighbors as ourselves. We protect the religious freedom of our neighbors as we protect our own religious freedom. And we do it in our constitutional democracy by defending the First Amendment.
Well, thank you for your testimony and thank you for your work. Professor McCord, the Constitution says that the states shall appoint the officers of the militias, that Congress has the power to arm, to organize, to discipline the militias. And so the groups that are out on the streets in different states and cities, or that arrived in Washington on January 6th, who are calling themselves militias, they have no formal legal status, do they? And what is their status in the states?
That's correct, Chairman. There is no authority under the federal constitution or any state constitution for private groups of individuals to band together and form their own private armies or private militias. Well-regulated has always meant regulated by the government, even since before the founding. As you indicated, Article 1 gives Congress the authority to provide for the organizing and disciplining of the militia, and it gives states the ability to appoint officers. Congress has executed that authority through the Militia Acts, which have authorized since the late 1700s what has become our modern National Guard. So the only lawful militia is a militia that reports up through the government. They're state-level militias, and they can be federalized.
The Proud Boys are not a militia. The 3%ers are not militia. In fact, the Constitution says that Congress has the power to call forth the militias of the states, i.e. the National Guard, in order to put down insurrections by groups like that might pretend to be a militia. Right?
That's correct. They have no status under law. They have no authority to engage in insurrection.
All right. Well, let's see. If there are no other members present, then I think we can move to close. Ms. Mace, do you have any closing thoughts before I